I had people go look at the records on Area 51 to make sure there was no alien down there. And people thought that because everybody who works there has to stop about an hour away and put on special clothing and then drive in and out. And that's because a lot of our stealth technology is made there. We know that now, but there are no aliens there. What do we know? We know now we live in an ever-expanding universe. We know that there are billions of stars and planets literally out there, and the universe is getting bigger. We know from our fancy telescopes that just in the last 2 years, more than 20 planets have been identified outside our solar system that seem to be far enough away from their suns and dense enough that they might be able to support some form of life. So it makes it increasingly less likely that we're alone.
Oh, you're trying to give me a hint that there are aliens.
No, I'm trying to tell you I don't know.
Oh.
But if we were visited someday, I wouldn't be surprised. I just hope that it's not like Independence Day.
Yeah, right.
That it's a conflict.
Well, now we have friendly
Maybe the only way to unite this incredibly divided world of ours. They're out there. We better think of how all the differences among people on Earth would seem small if we felt threatened by a space invader. That's the whole theory of independence.
You're right.
Everybody gets together and makes nice and, you know.
And if you looked in, because if I was president, that's the first thing I do. I go right into those files and see what was going on.
Right.
And he said that he did do that.
Yes.
And that he didn't find anything.
Well, I'm gonna do it again.
Yeah, why not?
Right? And you know, there's a new name. It's unexplained aerial phenomenon.
Unexplained aerial phenomenon,
Yep,
really?
Yep, UAP. That's the latest nomenclature.
I like the old one. I like UFO. I don't know why.
Well, I think we can use them interchangeably, but I would like us to go into those files and hopefully make as much of that public as possible. If there's nothing there, let's tell people
have the
there's
files about Area 51 and the UFOs, and I go through everything to find out what happened.
Right.
Did you do that?
That's why you will not be president. Because that's the first thing that you would do.
It's at the
The
top
aliens
of my
won't
list.
let it happen. You reveal all their secrets. They exercise strict control over us.
Now, you know, there are a lot of people that are going to examine your facial expressions here, every twitch, everything, and say, and of course, so did you look? Did you see? Did you explore?
I can't reveal anything.
Oh, really? Because President Clinton said he did go right in, and he did check, and there was nothing.
Well, you know, that's what we're instructed to say.
What if the history you were taught in school was all a lie? Is our government controlled by a secret society? Welcome to the world of conspiracy, where cover-ups, secrets, and hidden agendas. Despite decades of UFO sightings and alien abductions, the United States government has maintained a single, unwavering position about the existence of extraterrestrials: denial.
Already preparing for the threat of Zika virus in Brazil.
In the quiet town of Mount Vernon, Washington, Emil Grafstra has capabilities unlike anyone around. To access his storage facility, all he has to do is raise his hand. To get into his car, again, put out his hand. Grafstra has 4 radio frequency identification tags in his hand and arm. A doctor inserted Grafstra's first tag 10 years ago, and since then he's inserted implants into more than 700 people. He also partners with more than 100 body piercers nationwide, who have implanted thousands more. Grafstra's company, Dangerous Things, sells $40 do-it-yourself kits, which include the tag, syringe, and non-toxic materials.
Mayhem inside an Israeli restaurant. Two Palestinian gunmen opening fire. Surveillance cameras capturing the chaos. People running for their lives as bullets fly, setting off a stampede for the exits. The gunmen dressed in dark suits, reportedly disguised as Orthodox Jews, moving from table to table, shooting diners, killing 4 and injuring 5.
Less than 7 months ago, ISIS attacks against a Paris soccer game, cafes and a concert ended with 130 dead. Now the French government knows ISIS wants to strike again.
We have just experienced an earthquake. We are initiating earthquake procedures.
We are updating you on an earthquake that rocked San Diego and parts of Southern California here in just a few hours. In the last few hours, we want to welcome you here. I'm Virginia Cha.
I'm Renee Nelson in for Jason Martinez this morning. That 5.2 magnitude quake's epicenter about 13 miles north of Borrego Springs. Taking a look at this map, you can see the nearby cities there, Temecula, Escondido. Those tremors could be felt all the way up to Los Angeles.
Right to Die law went into effect Thursday, making it legal for terminally ill residents to end their lives. The law, signed in October by Governor Jerry Brown, is called the End of Life Option Act. It lets physicians provide lethal prescriptions to adults with terminal illnesses who have a life expectancy of 6 months or less.
Antibiotics are one of the miracles of modern medicine. They have saved countless lives, but there's another side to them. The bacteria that live in our body, they've learned how to outwit many of our most powerful antibiotics.
In the race to stay one step ahead of infectious disease, we seem to be losing. Superbugs carrying drug-resistant forms of disease like malaria and tuberculosis are growing fast. And today, the threat to the human race from these deadly new diseases is more certain than that from climate change. That's according to a study commissioned by the British government.
Today, drug-resistant... More mysterious holes just like this one are popping up in Russia, and no one seems to know the cause. Even scientists can't figure it out. Now, 300 miles away, several other holes have formed. Russian scientists believe there are 20 to 30 more craters, but they have no explanation for how they are forming. Theories do abound, with people suggesting everything from methane explosions to secret underground government bunkers to the always popular aliens.
Tonight, terror at a Dallas airport. Shots ringing out just after noon, right outside baggage claim.
Attention Rescue 18, gunshot.
Officers' guns drawn, travelers right there. This video showing the suspect get back up and appear to charge at police with a rock.
In the streets, and all of this before Marseille even saw its first game being played. Kickoff was just a few moments ago between England and Russia, but for 3 days now we've seen hooligans, English fans, Russian fans, French fans, fighting with each other in the street. Really shocking scenes. One man, reportedly an England fan, said by local media to be fighting for his life as a result of tonight's violent clashes. We've seen the French police baton charging fans, firing tear gas into the crowd, fans throwing bottles at each other and the police, hurling chairs that they've yanked out of restaurant terraces. Really very distressing scenes, certainly not the image of the Euro 2016 football tournament that organisers UEFA want to portray. They have condemned the violence, and certainly these scenes are raising fears that we could be seeing a return to the very dark days of football hooliganism. And really, it's the very last thing the French police need to be dealing with at the moment. There is, of course, a very real terror threat that is still ongoing here in France, and the Euro 2016 tournament has been identified as a likely terrorist target. So really, brawling football hooligans in the streets of Marseille are the last thing the French police need to be dealing with right now.
Another bloody day in Syria as twin explosions rocked the capital suburb of Sayyida Zainab. This is the third attack of its kind on the same district in 2016. Sayyida Zainab is home to one of the most holy shrines for Muslim Shiites in Syria and the constant target of repeated rebel attacks. Saturday's attacks were carried out using a combination of a car bomb and suicide attackers, according to the Syrian state news agency Sana, that also reported that several people were killed and dozens others were wounded.
Let's get straight to the breaking news overnight. That fatal shooting of a popular young singer after a concert.
You may recognize her. This is Christina Grimmie. She's a star of YouTube and reality TV. After this performance in Orlando overnight, she was greeting her fans when a man pulled out a gun and shot her.
Our coverage of the breaking news out of Florida continues now. It is now officially the worst mass shooting in American history.
A man with an assault rifle stormed an Orlando nightclub. Police say at least 50 people are dead. Many others are hospitalized.
Says he will continue to develop the regime's nuclear weapons program in defiance of international calls to denuclearize. The North State-run Korean Central News Agency reported Monday that Kim Jong-un made the remarks while on a visit to the National Defense University, though it did not give the date.
It's no coincidence that the United States began building its own mysterious array of antennas in February 1992. They are located in Gakona, Alaska. The project is called HARP.
HARP is the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project, originally a joint effort of the Air Force and Navy in cooperation with a number of academic institutions.
It is today the world's largest radio broadcasting station, but it's not designed to broadcast for human ears. It uses unique patented ability to focus the energy coming out of the antenna field and injects that energy into a spot at the very top of the atmosphere in a region called the ionosphere.
HARP is being used for weather modification. The military's own record proves it. They've admitted it within their own documents, and yet they still deny it to the public.
In its position that HARP is just an atmospheric research facility. But is it more than coincidence that since going online, some experts have reported strange weather anomalies, including massive floods, hurricanes, and earthquakes? HARP went online in 1994, and construction continued until 2007.
Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Yeah, this is a picture taken in the last day at the, just the last day at the Weather Observatory on Mount Washington up in New Hampshire.
It's missing its hat, otherwise it could come to life. I mean, this is winter time in July or June. I guess we're still in June, but in June. So everywhere else, temperatures I feel like they're in the 90s, but here on Mount Washington, it is snowing. In fact, they got more than 1.8 inches of snow on the summit in the last 24 hours.
In South China, Shanghai, alongside regions like Zhejiang, Fujian, Guangdong, Guangxi, Yunnan, Jiangxi, and Hunan, have seen 50 to 120 millimeters of rain. Some places have seen as much as 250 millimeters of rainfall. And in North China has been affected too. Besides heavy downpours and thunderstorms, Beijing, Tianjin, and provinces including Hebei, Heilongjiang, Jilin, and Liaoning have witnessed gales or hailstones. The country's weather authority says more rain is due in the next 5 days. It has warned of the risk of disasters such as landslides and flooding in mountainous areas. Our Jiang Shaoyi has more.
Rainstorms accompanied by gales and hail battered the city of Harbin in northeast China's Heilongjiang province on Sunday. The sudden deluge soon turned the city streets into icy rivers, with water in low-lying areas reaching a depth of about 30 centimeters. Drivers and passengers had to abandon their vehicles to escape the rising floodwater.
Hey, right there. That's it right there.
That's a tornado in Baker, Montana on Saturday. The person who captured this video is with his family at a wedding reception when they spotted the EF3 tornado overhead and were forced to make a run for it.
Oh my God, honey, go!
Luckily, everyone made it out unscathed, but this was one of two tornadoes that came back to back in the town of Baker Saturday, destroying 30 homes and injuring 6 people.
Two police officers, a husband and a wife, stabbed to death in France by a man ISIS claims is their fighter. And ABC's Alex Marquardt is in Paris now with the latest details for us. Good morning to you, Alex.
Good morning, Amy. That's right. This morning, French officials are calling this a despicable act of terrorism. Just a short time ago, the Paris prosecutor confirmed that the attacker is a 25-year-old French citizen named Larossi Abala. He targeted this couple in their home 35 miles outside of Paris. The husband was a police commander, the wife an executive assistant.
Potential terrorist, high IQ, white-collar criminal. New computer technology can scan their faces and detect character traits within seconds.
Amarillo's SWAT team got the call just after 11 o'clock.
Units available for an active shooter at 4215 Canyon Drive, Walmart.
Reports of an armed shooter at Walmart taking 2 hostages, shoppers hiding inside.
One caller is coming from the pharmacy. They're advising several people. They can hear them screaming.
A Baptist preacher issued extreme and troubling comments in a videotaped sermon, actually praising the Orlando club attacks.
Hey, are you sad that 50 pedophiles were killed today? No, I think that's great. I think that helps society. You know, I think Orlando, Florida is a little safer tonight.
A desperate search underway at a luxury Disney resort near Orlando. By air and in the water for a 2-year-old boy snatched and dragged away by an alligator at Disney's Grand Floridian Resort. The toddler was waiting near the shore of a man-made lake with his family nearby.
Tonight, devastation and chaos at one of the world's busiest airports. Officials say 3 attackers were detected by police while entering the airport. Armed with assault weapons, they stormed the entrance, at least one opening fire. Then the attackers detonating 3 bombs. Shattered doors show the power of the blasts. Bodies littered the ground. A shaken witness speaking minutes after the attack.
Okay, this is just gross. It's like a horror movie. The invasion of the mayflies. A small town in Illinois has been infested with thousands of these things. They flew in overnight to the town of Havana, southwest of Peoria. And normally they're harmless, but the problem is the numbers. Look at how many. And in this case, they were 6 inches deep in some places on a bridge that crosses the Illinois River. Cars got stuck. Ew.
Now, in more international news, Turkey is looking to rebuild its fractured ties with Russia.
Effective today, San Diego parents have to vaccinate their children if they want them to go to school.
For the very first time, U.S. officials have given the green light for scientists to experiment with modification of human genes. It's been approved in the hope of trying to develop new anti-cancer technology. Human gene modification is a feared and highly debated topic for many reasons, and horror films aren't exactly helping.
All clear.
That's it.
Heart rate stable. If we don't use human DNA now, someone else will.
What was that?
Experts say this gigantic radio telescope will fast forward China's astronomical level by at least 10 years. Once completed, it will be the world's biggest single aperture spherical radio telescope. and the most sensitive radio telescope in human history. In just a few months, it will require radio silence within 5 kilometers. All residents have to move away, and no cell phone signals are allowed.
The Muslim world has been shook by the attack. Never has anyone in history attempted a suicide bomb or any sort of a violent attack at the Holy Mosque in Medina, the second most holy site for Muslims in general. It's where the Muslim prophet Muhammad is buried.
At least 4 security officers were killed and 5 wounded when a suicide bomber detonated his vest near the Prophet's Mosque in Medina, one of the holiest sites in Islam.
There have been more than 80 terror attacks linked to ISIS since the start of Ramadan on June 5th. These include mass shootings, mass executions, and suicide bombings. At least 9 have had a death toll higher than 20. Most recently, 20 hostages, most of them foreigners, were killed at a bakery cafe in Dhaka, Bangladesh, and a bombing in Baghdad early Sunday left at least 130 dead, including 25 children, turning preparations for the end of Ramadan into a nightmare.
Those protests lasting well into the night, so many registering their outrage over the shooting death of Alton Sterling by 2 Baton Rouge police officers, and the shocking video of it all caught on cell phone. Overnight, protests growing louder in Baton Rouge after the police shooting death of Alton Sterling, a man reportedly selling CDs outside of a Louisiana convenience store Tuesday. The fatal confrontation between the 37-year-old Sterling and police officers captured in this cell phone video. In the video, 2 officers appear to struggle with a man, tasing him and slamming him to the ground. One officer seems to yell, "Gun!" And then, shots are fired.
They shot him? Oh my goodness.
They killed this boy.
Oh.
Sterling died at the scene from multiple gunshot wounds.
We'll begin with the latest on the deployment of a powerful U.S. missile defense system to South Korea. North Korea has shown its first official response since Seoul and Washington announced their plan to deploy THAAD. And it says the decision will prompt its military response.
Korea is ready to strike against Seoul and Washington the moment the two confirm the location of the THAAD system, threatening it'll turn them into a, quote, sea of fire.
الله أكبر وعد وعد الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر ولله الحمد.
Absolutely, we are really in a state of crisis.
The most brutally violent terror group in modern history.
This is an organization that has an apocalyptic end-of-days strategic vision.
It is now our generation's task to carry on.
An 8.5 magnitude earthquake has struck a
Our journey is not complete until our gay brothers and sisters are treated like anyone else under the law.
For the second time in less than 3 weeks, Nepal has been rocked by another major earthquake.
Geologists say there's been more seismic activity over the last 7 months than over the last 4 decades. It's the frequency of these shocks that has the public as well as scientists puzzled.
911, what's the address of the emergency?
Yes, there's a baby in our garbage can.
This is 2015 when women are ruling the world.
And so much crime going on that they really can't control it. So have we lost our moral compass, or are we just more aware of it now?
Let me ask you something. Are your parents okay with you being here? My parents. My parents.
This is modern-day Babylon.
Good evening, godless sodomites.
Never before in the history of this country have so many corrupting influences descended upon children at one time.
Kneel before your God, Babylon!
There's been a lot of buzz over the last few weeks about strange sounds being heard in the atmosphere.
And we start with some breaking news this hour. People in the Urals in Russia have seen burning objects raining down from the sky after a meteorite exploded above the Earth.
A terrible mystery gripping the world right now. Birds, fish, and all kinds of creatures just dropping dead in huge numbers for what seems like no reason.
It's the latest in a series of unexplained sudden death incidents. The events have sparked a media frenzy, with doomsday speculators saying it hails the end of the world.
165 tornadoes in 24 hours?
Now 11 earthquakes in just the last 24 hours. And of course, the new concern over what's causing this.
Could this be the start of something bigger?
Experiencing one of the worst floods in the past 70 years. The flooding has reached biblical proportions.
A massive tornado at least 2 miles wide.
Scientists are baffled.
Tonight with breaking news.
The death toll is about to rise.
So there's a lot of changes, geological and seismic changes that are going on.
Increase of earthquakes. According to the United States and geological surveys, the rate of earthquakes and the frequency of earthquakes has increased, and found the current trend was out of the ordinary.
You see this is happening in multiple areas. What's going on? An increase in earthquakes.
Scientists.
This is something that we're seeing
Around the world.
An earthquake that's so massive.
And as technology has revolutionized our ability to communicate with each other, it's also allowed us to celebrate ourselves through boastful tweets, humble brags, status updates, and photos.
Narcissistic traits have been rising at the same rate as obesity.
It's about you.
We're breeding a selfie nation. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram may all be contributing to a generation of self-absorbed, self-promoting, self-involved oversharers.
It's about you.
What does that say about us?
Look at me. Look at me.
Selfie obsession is now reaching new heights. Based on their observations, the members of the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists Science and Security Board find conditions in the world to be so threatening that they are moving the hands of the doomsday clock 2 minutes closer to midnight. It is now 3 minutes to midnight. Today, unchecked climate change and a nuclear arms race pose extraordinary and undeniable threats to the continued existence of humanity. And world leaders have failed to act with the speed or on the scale required to protect citizens from potential catastrophe.
What's happening on planet Earth is definitely not business as usual.
The question is about whether this is all a sign of the apocalypse.
Down the World Trade Center, okay? It wasn't the Iraqis that knocked down the World Trade Center. We went after Iraq, we decimated the country, Iran's taken over, okay. But it wasn't the Iraqis.
So, let me just tell you, I get along with everybody, which is my obligation to my company, to myself, etc. Obviously, the war in Iraq was a big, fat mistake, all right? Now, you can take it any way you want, and it took Jeb Bush, if you remember at the beginning of his announcement, when he announced for president, took him 5 days. He went back. It was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. Took him 5 days before his people told him what to say. And he ultimately said it was a mistake. The war in Iraq, we spent $2 trillion, thousands of lives. We don't even have it. Iran is taking over Iraq with the second largest oil reserves in the world. Obviously, it was a mistake. So George Bush made a mistake. We can make mistakes, but that one was a beauty. We should have never been in Iraq. We have destabilized the Middle East.
But so you still think he should be impeached?
I think it's my turn, isn't it? You do whatever you want. You call it whatever you want. I want to tell you, they lied. Okay. They said there were weapons of mass destruction. There were none, and they knew there were none. There were no weapons of mass
Okay,
destruction.
all right. Governor Bush.
But I am
$22
sick and
million
tired.
in
I am
ads.
sick and tired of him going after my family. My dad is the greatest man alive in my mind.
A new world order can emerge, a new era, freer from the threat of terror, stronger in the pursuit of justice, and more secure in the quest for peace. And today that new world is struggling to be born.
Down the World Trade Center, okay? It wasn't the Iraqis that knocked down the World Trade Center.
A new world order can emerge, a new era.
Commercial airline. That second one wasn't no commercial. No, second one definitely didn't have any markings on it that I saw.
No, I didn't see it. The second one, it didn't have, like no camouflage or anything,
No, no emblems, no logos.
It didn't look like an airliner leave.
This one giving up worth something.
Okay.
A black plane. Yeah, we see it going around. He went. Yeah, we just saw it.
And the plane wasn't no airline or anything. It was a twin-engine, big gray plane.
When you saw the second one happen, what did it look like? And it was a much smaller plane, but someone said it looked like a military plane, but I'm not sure. I don't know much about airplanes. It was like a military plane. It was a military plane.
Could be a drone aircraft. That's an aircraft that's guided electronically to its target without having a pilot.
A world quite different from the one we've known. A world where the rule of law supplants the rule of the jungle. A world in which nations recognize the shared responsibility for freedom and justice. A world where the strong respect the rights of the weak. We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be.
I am sick and tired of him going after my family. My dad is the greatest man alive in my mind.
It wasn't the Iraqis that knocked down the World Trade Center. We went after Iraq. We decimated the country. Iran's taken over. Okay. But it wasn't the Iraqis. You will find out who really knocked down the World Trade Center because they have papers in there that are very secret.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant.
Papers in there that are very secret.
Repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned. No secret is revealed.
Do you want to know what it is? The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth? That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind. Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
The Matrix is a system, Neo. That system is our enemy. But when you're inside, you look around, what do you see? Businessmen, teachers, lawyers, carpenters. The very minds of the people we are trying to save. But until we do, these people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy. You have to understand, most of these people are not ready to be unplugged. And many of them are so inert, so hopelessly dependent on the system, that they will fight to protect it. Were you listening to me, Neo? Or were you looking at the woman in the red dress? I was. Look again.
Devil is not welcome here!